Let's talk now about creating an answer file. Before we do that, we need to answer the question, what exactly is an answer file? Well, an answer file provides instructions or answers for when we're needing to do an installation. So it helps us automate setup. But it can actually do a lot more than that. It can also be used by Windows PE. Windows PE can read it. DISM can actually read it. SysPrep can actually read it. Inside an answer file are these configuration passes and different components that belong to the installation category can read an answer file and be automated and consume the instructions there. Like with DISM, for instance, you can write inside the answer file the location of a batch of drivers it needs to use. Or with SysPrep, you can provide instructions on how you want it to prepare the system for installation. Like, for instance, you can tell it to remember the plug-and-play devices it detected as a part of the procedure of preparing the system to become captured in an image, right? Assuming you're familiar with the way SysPrep works, you can use an answer file to help automate that. Now, one of the key things to know about it is it's XML-based. So there's a specific schema that Microsoft developed a few years ago, and we're still using that schema to build basic answer files. The tool we use is called the Windows System Image Manager. Now, where do you get the Windows System Image Manager? You might remember where it's the ADK. That's right, the Assessment and Deployment Kit. So when you download it, one of the tools that comes inside the ADK is the Windows System Image Manager, or the WinSim, and that's what I can use to create and edit answer files. Now, to understand how an answer file works, we're going to take a moment and look at these configuration passes in a little bit more detail. Now, the answer file is constructed in configuration passes. So when you open up WinSim, you'll see the different configuration passes. They're listed in a brand new answer file. And then what you do is you populate it, depending, of course, on what you're trying to do. So Windows PE, for instance, its job is to actually read the actual portion or configuration pass. So any instructions that you want Windows PE to read, you're going to put them in that part of the answer file. Windows Setup can actually read Windows PE, but it can also parse and read information in offline servicing, the specialized pass, and then the UBI configuration pass. And these are several phases that occur during a basic installation. You start with Windows PE, Setup executes, we create the disks, so we start copying the files, right? Then the specialized pass binds unique settings for that installation to the device, and UBI is that out-of-box experience. So that's really kind of your whole installation procedure, those various phases listed there. And you can automate those with an answer file by supplying answers to those sections of your answer file. Now, SysPrep down here can also be used to read an answer file. So there's a generalized configuration pass for generalizing a system, kind of neutralizing it, preparing it for actual image capture. But then if you're building an image, a custom image, so you build a reference computer. If you're familiar with the imaging process, you know you build a reference computer, and then you make edits and changes to that. Well, then you might want to test those edits and changes before you turn it into a WIM file. So there's a couple of other configuration passes that support SysPrep. Inside of WinSim, when you open it up to create an answer file, you'll see these configuration passes. You'll see Windows PE, you'll see the offline servicing pass, you'll see the specialized pass, the generalized pass. They relate to these three different components, and they relate to these different executables, really, reading and using the answer file. So if you want to automate Windows Setup, be aware of the fact that these are the four configuration passes that you would edit inside your answer file. All right, so an answer file, as we've learned, is an XML file. How do I use the answer file now that I built it? For setup, you can use it by simply calling it with the /unattend switch right there. Alternatively, you can name the XML file autounattend.xml. You name it that specific name, and what you're doing then is you're instructing setup to use that answer file because setup already looks for that file by that name. So it's predisposed to hunt around and look around for autounattend.xml, and it looks in several places. It looks at the root of the C drive, it looks at the root of the removable media, It looks in a couple of other places in the Windows directory and such for that file. Really, if you name it auto-unattend.xml and make sure it's available at the root of your boot media or your installation media, it will find it, and you don't actually have to use any switches or reference it at all. Otherwise, if you're using an answer file for sysprep or WinPE, they also have their own switches. For Windows PE, I should clarify, Windows PE actually has its own bootstrap process and its own boot files it uses at execution. So startnet.cmd, for instance. So what I would do is I would name the answer file and I would put it at the root of the Windows PE media in the appropriate place for it to automatically find it. And then sysprep has a /unattend switch that I can use.